What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you guys, not just me, but also Ben. We're going to show you guys how to do an oil change and spark plug change on the B58 motor. As you guys know, I just tuned my car and we're at about 20,000 miles. So it's definitely time to change the spark plugs, get them nice and fresh for the tune. And then also might as well change the oil and move up to a higher weight because we're about to go into summertime where temps in Orlando, Florida are going to be through the roof, like 90 degrees. So definitely want to get like a higher weight oil in there just to have a little bit more protection for the engine components. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it.
Hold on, I'm gonna talk to him. I'm like, am I really talking to people or am I just talking to myself?
So I already did an oil change myself on this car for the first time. I didn't want to do a DIY because I've never done an oil change on a B58. But today, Ben is offering to help me out. Shout out to the GOAT.
Go, baby, the GOAT.
That's what we call him. But yeah, he's gonna help me go through the motions. It's gonna be really quick for him to do it. In the shop here, he's got all the tools and the lift, so it's gonna be super easy. And yeah, oil change is really simple, so I might as well just throw this into the same video as the spark plug change. So the whole point of this video is to show you guys how you can do this on your own and save you a good bit of money from going to the dealership or any other shop, because these jobs are, it's pretty simple. You just gotta have the tools and the knowledge. So we're gonna try to help you so you can do it yourself.
All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to F30 Skirts channel. You already know who I am. Once your hood's popped and everything's good to go, you're gonna wanna start by pulling off the engine cover. Now it has a couple of grommets that go around it, so you're just gonna lift up like that, and then lift up in the back, and it comes right off. Now once you have the engine cover off, you're gonna wanna step over to the driver's side of the vehicle. Now when you're over on this side, you're gonna notice this connection right here. There are two little pins. There's one right here and there's one over here. You're gonna pull them both at the same time and then lift up, and that's gonna release that. Now the reason why you're doing that is because the oil filter on the B engine, so the B58, B46, B48, are all in the back of the motor now. So we're just gonna set this over to the side as best as we can, right over there. Now I can see clearly now where the oil filter is. So the oil filter is right down there. I don't know how well you guys can see that, but it's gonna sit right down there in that crevice. So once you've done those two simple steps, now you're gonna wanna get an extension, a decent sized one about this size. And you're gonna want your ratchet, 3/4. So put the extension on your ratchet. Now this is where this comes into play. Now the older body cars, the F series and things like that, you would use an oil filter wrench sort of like this. But the B engines are no longer like that, and now they use this because this goes over the top of the filter, which loosens it and releases it. So you're gonna take that and you're gonna put it on top. Now typically what you wanna do is you kinda wanna angle it depending on the car. So perfect, so for instance, right, depending on the car, like the B48, it comes in obviously a lot of different BMWs. It comes in the X5 and pretty much any genre you can think of. So now this extension would work on an X5, X4, something like that, an SUV. But this length of an extension isn't gonna work on Kyler's car because of how long this is, and we don't have enough room to get past the cowl filter back here. So we're gonna switch to a shorty. So you're gonna want one like this. So when you have one like this, I'm gonna show you. Now I'm able to get it all the way on the filter at the bottom, and now I know I'm seated correctly on the filter housing. That long one, I was on it, but I wasn't on it all the way. So if I were to go to turn it, I would have slipped off. You could damage the plastic housing at the top of the filter, which could potentially get worse over time. And then you would start to lose grip with the wrench and things like that. We don't want that. So we wanna make sure that we're on there securely. So now all you're gonna do is you're just gonna break it free. It shouldn't be too difficult if it was done properly. And then you're just gonna wanna guide it. So we're gonna break this bad boy off, like so. And then it's gonna get a lot easier the looser it gets. You'll notice I'm able to go a lot faster now because it's not on there as tight. And then finally, you'll have it to the point to where it's completely up and off. All right, so once it's completely loosened, as you can see, I'm grabbing it here. Now, I'm not gonna pull it out initially because all the oil that's inside the filter, if I was to pull this out right now, that oil would drip all over Kyler's motor, and we don't want that. So I'm just gonna pull it up ever so slightly, as you can see, like that, and then I'm gonna just set it back inside, let it rest right there, let all the oil go down inside the actual filter housing. So after you've done that, you wanna go ahead and you wanna break off your cap here, where you put your oil in. That way we have the maximum amount of airflow going into the motor once we take the drain plug off on the bottom, so that all the oil filters out as fast as possible. Makes your oil changes a lot quicker. So now we're gonna raise the vehicle up. We're gonna go to the bottom side, and then we'll tell you what to do from there. All right, guys, so now we have the vehicle lifted up in the air. So now on the underside of the vehicle, you'll notice there's a cutout right here. Now this cutout right here is gonna be where the oil drain plug is. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take a flathead screwdriver, and you're gonna wanna unlock it. Take that same flathead and pull down on the cover. Once you pull down on the cover, it's gonna expose the drain bolt for the oil. And I'm just pushing this up like this because sometimes what happens is, as you can see, it kind of wants to come back. You can always grab something and attach it to where it holds it over here. But I'm just gonna push her up a little bit so she kind of gets out of the way. And a 17mm socket. And we're just gonna wanna break it loose. Now I typically like to give her a hit, but if that doesn't work, then we gotta put some leg work behind it. So let's see how tight she is. Ugh. She was pretty tight.
Yeah, I wonder who changed that oil last.
Yeah, I wonder, right? So once you have it loose, this is where things get fun. I'm just gonna loosen the bolt with my hand now that I've already broken it loose, and get it to about halfway, right about there. And whatever oil bucket or whatever you're using, make sure it's up there pretty good because it can splash. And then you're just gonna wind it off the rest of the way, like that.
How's the oil looking?
And then you're gonna let it drain. Now this is also, like Kyler just said, how's the oil looking? This is a good time to inspect your oil, guys. You can take a flashlight and you can put it up there, see if you see any like sparklies, pixie dust. Obviously you don't want to see pixie dust because that means something's wrong. I can visibly see through Kyler's oil right now, which is a very good thing. You know, I don't know how long ago you did your oil change, Kyler, whether it was 3,000 miles or 5,000 miles.
It's probably like a little less than 3,000, honestly.
A little less than 3,000. I mean, yeah, but the oil does look very good. You know, I do oil changes on, cars every day, pretty much. Customers come in, and per BMW, these cars get oil changes every 10,000 miles. And I've done oil changes on these cars at their first, oil change at 10,000 miles, and you can still see through the oil, which is very good. BMW's done a very good job when it comes to these motors, building them, and all the oil deposits and breakup and things like that. So, we've come a long way in technology when it comes to oil and motors and designs and things like that. Oil definitely does look really good. And plus, now that you're tuned, Kyler, getting, fresh oil in there is obviously gonna help you out, in the long run, things like that. I always wanna take care of your motor. Preventative maintenance, guys, right? If you beat on the car, or exactly, maintenance before mods. If you beat on the car, guys, you wanna do your maintenance. You don't wanna neglect your car. Obviously, if you like to have fun with your car, if you like to drive fast, if you like to beat on it, obviously you wanna make sure, you do things like this, oil changes every 3,000 miles and stuff like that to keep your motor healthy, to keep your motor running longer so that you can continue to beat on the car longer. So once the oil gets done draining, guys, I'm gonna grab the filter and stuff over here. We'll replace the crush washer and stuff like that, and then we'll pick up the camera once I unbox all this beautiful stuff, and we'll go from there. So once it gets to a nice drip, I'll put the crush washer back onto the drain bolt, and we'll put it back up there. We'll torque it to spec. But not necessarily. You don't have to let it, go to a drip. That's just me. I like letting it go to a drip. But you guys don't have to if you don't want to. So typically don't want to reuse the same crush washer when you're doing an oil change. Now, if you have to, you can. It's not recommended. These crush washers right here are one-time use because they do get torqued to spec. And once it's torqued to spec, obviously it gets crushed. And the oil filter kit that you get when you're doing an oil change, you're gonna get a brand new one, which is this. So you're gonna go ahead and you wanna slip it over the bolt, just like that. And now you're gonna wanna take it, you wanna put it right back up here, and you wanna start it. I always find that the B engines, they always give me trouble when I put the drain bolt back in. I don't know why. Sometimes I gotta play with it, but there we go. So you wanna get it, and you wanna put it in by hand, as far as you can go. I typically like to get it hand tight, right about there. Like I said, guys, you're gonna wanna torque it. I'm gonna grab my handy dandy torque wrench right here. Snap on, baby.
Only the best.
Only the best. Typically everything for BMWs is done in Newton meters, right? Not foot pounds. It's a German car, they don't use foot pounds, they use Newton meters. So my torque wrench is in foot pounds and also in Newton meters. So typically, depending on the type of drain plug it is and the type of oil pan it is, it's usually anywhere between 25 to 32 Newton meters of torque. Kyler's is going to be right around 26.5. And we're just going to tighten it until you hear that click. So I'm gonna do that again for you guys. That click right there is what tells you that it's torque to spec. If you don't have a torque wrench and you're doing it by hand, I always recommend that if you're doing it by hand, you do it till it gets tight and then you give it about a half a turn like that and then stop there. Reasons why, if you go too tight on the drain plug bolt, what happens is that you'll mess up the threads on the actual oil pan itself. If you mess up the threads on the oil pan itself, the next time you go to do your oil change or somebody else goes to do your oil change, when they go to take the drain bolt out, it's gonna be rough and it's gonna be stuck. And that means that the threads are messed up because you over tightened it. And then things can get messy, whether you have to get a completely new oil pan, or depending on where you take it, they might have a drill set where they can drill new threads for you and then put a different drain plug in there for you. That's something you never want to get into if you don't have to. So always make sure you never over tighten the drain plug, because obviously that's what can happen. So now that that's tight, I'm gonna clean it off real quick with some brake clean, just to get that oil residue off of there. Make sure it's nice and clean. I'm gonna grab our flathead. Now that's all clean. And we're gonna put this back up in here to where it's almost flush by rotating the lock here. And now everything on the bottom side is done. I would also recommend, guys, while you're already under here, whether you have a lift or you have it on jacks, try to inspect your oil pan if you can. You know, B58s are really good now. BMW has pretty much sealed the oil pan to where they really don't leak anymore. It's very rare if you do have a B58 or a B engine motor that leaks. But right through this gap right here, where the downpipe is, with a flashlight, if you were to shine a flashlight right through here, you would be able to see the oil pan gasket on older vehicles, or you would be able to see the RTV or whatever BMW uses now to seal the oil pan to the block in there. You'd be able to see any residue of any oil leaking out of it or things like that. And that's just a pro tip, just so you can be aware if your car is leaking oil. So now what we're gonna do, guys, we're gonna bring the car back down. We're gonna go back up top. We're gonna remove that filter. We're gonna put the oil in, and that's pretty much gonna wrap up the oil change. So like, you know, I said in the beginning of the video, we didn't want to pull that filter out. We didn't want to get oil everywhere. Now all the oil that's inside the filter should be, you know, obviously drained down inside the actual oil filter housing. So now what we're gonna want to do is, you're gonna grab it. Now this is a tight area, and I kind of have medium-sized hands, so it can be difficult, but I have a rag here just to catch the filter, just in case there's any excess oil left over, so that we don't spill it anywhere. But you're just gonna snake it through up to the top, and then you're gonna grab it. This is what the oil filter does look like. Now it's very simple to get off. All you're gonna wanna do is you just wanna grab it and then pull, just like that, and it pops off. And then in order to get the ring off right here, we have our handy dandy pocket screwdrivers. I never go anywhere without my pocket screwdriver. This thing can literally take apart your guys' BMW probably about 80% of the way. It's crazy.
Believe him.
Believe me, trust me. But so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take that pocket screwdriver and we're gonna stick it right underneath that O-ring, and we're just gonna pull it off, throw that in there. If it's used, don't wanna reuse it, obviously we get a new one. You don't wanna take your new one, put one thumb on that side, and then wrap it around just like that. Now it's very important, guys, to make sure that the O-ring does seat where it's supposed to seat. If I were to put this O-ring up here and I wouldn't realize it, and then I'd put the filter back in and then I'd go to tighten it, what would happen is this O-ring right here would slice in half. And when it does slice in half, oil will leak out of the oil filter housing because it's not sealed properly. You won't know it until you get a message saying, hey, you're low on oil. And then you're like, what the hell's going on? There's no way. And then you look, and then you have a completely huge mess of oil everywhere on the side of your motor, underneath your pan, underneath your car, and it's just a disaster. Ask me how I know. So now that the O-ring is on there, I typically like to take whatever residue of oil that's left on here, get it on my, my gloves, and then I like to put that oil on the O-ring itself just to make it lubricated, because when we're going back in, it does have the potential of cutting itself and snapping, even though it's in the proper place, but with a little bit of extra lubrication from the old oil, it kind of helps prevent that. So now what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your filter. Now if you notice, there's two different sides of the filter. This is the side that goes facing downwards inside the housing, and this is the side that connects to the actual cap. So you see that side, you see the inside, you're gonna wanna take the square side right here, you're gonna wanna put it inside, Once it's inside, you're just gonna push down till you hear that click. You're gonna snake it back down inside and make sure that it seats correctly inside. Once you hear that little metallic click sound, you're gonna wanna start it by hand. And the reason why I say you wanna start it by hand, guys, is you wanna make sure that the oil filter and the cap itself is sitting on the housing correctly. And then you wanna get it as tight as you can with your hand. Once it's as tight as it can go with your hand, then you're gonna take your wrench and we're gonna sneak her right back inside, and then we're gonna start to tighten. Now, there is a torque spec listed at the top of the oil filter housing cap, but typically, I mean, you can torque them if you really want, but I mean, just hand tight is good enough. Like I said, if you over tighten this, or if you're not in the grooves correctly, you have the potential of snapping that O-ring, and then you're gonna have an oil leak, and it's gonna be a mess. So all I'm doing now is I'm just tightening this until I feel it stop. Right about there is when it's tight. So now that I know it's tight, all I'm gonna do is just give it one little push like that. I know it's tight. I'm not trying to over tighten it. I'm not trying to snap that little O-ring that goes around it. And then we're just gonna double check the seams, make sure everything looks good. And that'll be that for the filter. You always wanna just double check once that filter is down. You'll be able to see it where the top of the cap meets the actual oil filter housing itself. Once that's sealed, you'll be good to go. So now's the moment we've all been waiting for. We're gonna put the oil in the car, right? So now Kyler has decided to go with liquid moly, right? Special Tech 5W30. That's obviously the way you wanna go. You never wanna really do zero weight anything. I don't care what you say, zero weight anything is water. Prove me wrong. But 5W30 is pretty good, nice consistency, so it should help, the longevity of his motor and things of that nature. It's very important to note. I don't care what these manufacturers are telling you. I don't care what your friends are telling you, right? Trust me, okay? These cars, inline sixes, take 7 quarts of oil, okay? Or 6.5 liters of oil, if you want to get technical, right? 7 quarts, not 6.58, not 6.68, it's 7, all right? Trust me, these cars burn oil, they leak oil, whatever you want to think of, you need the 7, right? So we're going to be putting 7 quarts or 6.5 liters of oil into this B58. Spin the top off, pull the cap, throw that to the side. Kobe! I didn't make it. You want to make sure you use a funnel. I'm pretty surgical with this. I don't have to use a funnel, but I'm using a funnel just so I'm extra careful. We don't want to spill oil anywhere. But you're just gonna want to dump this bad boy in there. Pro tip, if you hold the liquid moly bottles to the side like this, they do drain a lot faster. Ask me how I know. So we're gonna put this whole thing in. Now this whole thing right here is 5.28 US quarts or 5 liters. So once I put this full one in, we'll put a full bottle of the next one in, which will bring it out to 6.2. And then we'll measure by eye the last one and make sure we get it right to 7. Now that we have by eye 7 quarts of oil in the motor, put that over there. And go and take your cap, put her on, quarter turn, you hear the click, locks in place. Gonna come back over here to where we first initially started. Gonna take this, just gonna line it up, push it down till you hear it click. That's secure, that's in place. Everything's good. Make sure you double check everything. Make sure you double check your filter. Make sure you double check this. Make sure you have oil in the motor. The last thing you want to do is do an oil change, think you put oil in the motor, or get distracted and think you put oil in the motor and then start it up. You're not gonna have a good day. So now that we know that everything's good, that's gonna wrap up the oil change, guys. We will show you how to measure the oil through the vehicle. With modern day BMWs, there's no longer a dipstick. It's all done electronically. The vehicle does have to run, it does have to get to operating temperature in order for it to measure it. And the reason why we're not doing that right now is because we want the motor cool, because what we're gonna do next is we're gonna do the spark plugs, like Kyler already mentioned. Spark plugs on the B engines are pretty straightforward. As you can see, once you take the engine cover off, you can already see all 6 of your coil packs all the way to the back. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna hop into that video now, or that portion of the video now. And I'm gonna grab my tools, and then we'll walk you through how to replace your spark plugs on the B58. So once you get done with all that, now this is going back to the oil change. We told you guys that we were gonna show you how to measure your oil level. You're gonna make sure your key's in the car. You're gonna click the button 1 time. Now this is for the F chassis cars. Click the button 1 time, the ignition switched on sign will come on, right? You're gonna hit your BC button, hood open, whatever. Hit the BC button again, get it off the screen. When you're back on this screen right here, you're gonna press and hold your tachometer button here to reset it. But if you notice, when I get rid of the hood, when I press and hold, it goes away, but then it comes back. When it comes back, you want to keep holding it. And now this screen is up where you're going to be able to reset your oil, brake fluid flush, vehicle check, things like that. So we're going to go over to oil. Now it does say the reset is possible, so you're going to press and hold the button again. It's going to ask you if you want to reset. Press and hold again, and then it says reset in progress. You can let go, and then it should say reset successful. Now it stayed at 8,000 miles. That's all there is for that. Then you can turn the ignition off.
All right, so we finally got it up to operating temp to where it wants to measure the oil. So we'll go back here to my vehicle and the iDrive system. Make sure that's focused. And go to vehicle status. Measure engine oil level. They'll be over here on the right or left side. Click that, start measurement. Do not hit the gas pedal or anything, and it will do its thing. It's just gonna rev up to like 1100 RPMs. And it's measuring the oil electronically. We are good to go. Thank you, Ben. Let's go.
G to G, baby.
We can get out of here.
Now guys, we're gonna be doing this the 100% correct way, the OEM way, how you should do it. There's other ways that you can do it, but we're gonna do this the right way. So what you're gonna start out with is a 10 millimeter. That's for these little locks back here. And you're just gonna wanna take it, now they should be locked. If they're locked, you're just gonna take it with your hand, give it a quarter turn each way, and then come over here and then pull this cover out of the grommet. That'll be one side out. I'm just gonna set this to the side. So now that that exposes our biggest issue here, which is gonna be this black piece back here. Now you guys can't see the whole component yet, but you will in a moment. This black piece back here is covering cylinder number 6. And it's also preventing us from taking off this piece of foam right here. Now this piece of foam is just for sound deadening and dampening.
You can remove that and like leave it off if you wanted.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, like Kyler said, you can remove this and leave it off. It just depends on whether or not you want to hear your high pressure fuel pump, which sits right there. Now on the S58 motor, which is the M3 and M4, the brand new M3 and M4, they don't have this anymore for weight reduction reasons. And it's very loud and it sounds like you have a rod knock, but I promise you guys, you don't have a rod knock. So
yeah, so especially if you're tuned, you're going to be wanting to change your spark plugs every like 15, 20K miles, depending on how hard you drive. And so you might just want to leave that off if you don't mind the noise of the fuel pump, just because you're going to be changing them often.
What he said. So now we're going to come here and we're just going to grab this piece of rubber and we're going to pull it back like this. Kaboom. Now that's going to expose our bolts right here that are on this brace. Now luckily this isn't an M car, so we don't have to worry about removing the entire we don't have to worry about removing the entire component. It's just a bolt here, 2 bolts in here, and a bolt over here. I'm gonna grab the tools I need. We're gonna show you guys how to remove it. Once that's removed, we're also gonna remove this black piece right here, which is gonna be either 8 or 10 mils, depending on which vehicle you have, depending on what year it is. They change the bolts per year, per vehicle. I do believe these are 10s. So I'm gonna remove this brace, I'm gonna remove this little black piece right here, and then we're gonna go into the actual spark plug job.
What size is that?
These bad boys are gonna be an E18. Make sure you use the proper size. E-Torques are very, very sensitive. If you use the wrong size, you have the potential of stripping out the head up here, and you don't want that because it might not tighten properly, or you might not be able to remove it. Now that we have all that off, this brace should lift up like you see. Whoa, gotta grab her. And then come right out. Set that over here to the side. Right, so now we're gonna switch over to a 10. Now we're gonna remove this black panel back here. There should be about 3 or 4 on each side. That's the 3 for that side. And there'll be 1 right here in the corner. Make sure you don't miss it. Also, make sure you don't drop them. You're gonna have a bad day. Take that one. That one. And that one. So there's 4 on the driver's side and there's 3 on the passenger side. Just gonna snake her out like this. Be very careful when you snake this out, guys. I'm gonna set this to the side. Very careful when you snake this out, guys. There is a plastic hose connection right here. If you were to take it out too fast or you were to come too far up, you have the potential of damaging that, and you don't want that. I also forgot to mention that there is a little tab right here that holds that plastic piece. That's why I couldn't remove it. Just pull that out. It should come out by hand, and then this should be free. We're gonna set that over here. And now we have access to this rubber covering, which is right here, and we can now pull up on and move out of the way. Set that right there. And now we can clearly see number 6. Number 6 is always the BITCH. Ask me how I know. Obviously you saw what we had to do in order to get to number 6. But now we can visibly see it, we can visibly get to it. It should be easy peasy. So now we can start removing the coil packs. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you the size you're gonna need, which is this one, to remove these bolts that hold the coil packs in position, is gonna be an E8, right? At an 8mm, an E8. So what you're gonna wanna do is put your E8 on there. You're gonna wanna initially break it free, like that, and then come up. Now these should not come out of the coil itself. They should stay down inside, but once they're completely loose, you should be able to wiggle it like that. Then what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna grasp the coil and pull it out just like that. You're gonna hear that noise. Now some might be a little more difficult than others, but this came out pretty easy. So the rest should come out pretty easy, fingers crossed. But if they do pose issues when coming out, just assess your situation, be careful. You don't want the coil breaking off down inside there or the rubber sticking around the actual spark plug itself, because that could be a whole nother world of issues. So you're gonna pretty much do that same procedure to the rest of them that are in there, all the other 5. Then once all those are out, then we'll get down to the spark plugs and I'll explain what to do next.
So Ben, what's so special about these coils?
All the gigajoules, baby. This is like probably BMW's pride and joy when it comes to coil packs. The amount of gigajoules that goes through these bad boys is astronomical. That's why some people talk about making the conversion to the B58 coil packs, because they're just that.
Yeah, and the S55 motors.
And the S55 motors, right? Obviously you want more joules, more spark, more power, all that good stuff. So now that you have all 6 of your coil packs laid up, how you see right here, now you're gonna start taking out the spark plugs. Now, I will note that a lot of people do this differently. I've seen a lot of people pull this little pin connection right here. Now, as you saw what I just did, I just used my finger and I pulled back on this pin connection. Once it's pulled back, you can pull down, push down on it, and then when you push down on it, well, when you push down on it, it comes out. Now, the reason why I don't do it like that is because of what you just saw. It's a little difficult to take off. You run the risk of breaking the actual tab that you have to unlock in order to push down on in order to remove that. And for me, if you don't have to unplug it, or the less work you have to do something, you might as well just do it that way. You run into less issues that way and things like that. So you can obviously, how I just did it.
So as I was sitting here editing the video, I realized that the footage got cut of Ben explaining the spark plug socket. So it's a specific spark plug socket. It's a 14mm and it has a special fitting that goes around the spark plug. Some of them have a rubber piece inside to help grab the spark plug. What he's gonna do is gonna go ahead and hand loosen them and then take them out very carefully. And that's pretty much it. All right, so now is a good time to go ahead and read your plugs and see how your car is running, whether it's running, too rich, too lean, whatever. I mean, Ben can probably explain this better than I can, so we'll let the master tech take over.
Shit, I wish. I ain't got that title yet. So just looking at Kyler's plugs here, they look normal. They look like what plugs will look like if you haven't replaced them in a while.
This is the first time replacing them in the car.
Correct, yeah. So this is Kyler's first time replacing them in the car and via BMW service records. So these plugs have been in there for about 4 years. Now generally with BMW, it's usually between, I believe, anywhere from 15 to 30,000 miles depending on the model of the car and things of that nature, or it's 3 years. So it's definitely been about 4 years. Kyler has a little over 20,000 miles, so this plug doesn't look that terrible for as long as it's been in the car and the amount of miles that are on the car. Now Kyler, you might notice a little bit of better performance with these new spark plugs. Obviously you're tuned now, but you know, signs that you might need spark plugs is that you might feel the car kind of idle a little weird, or it might lack a little bit in performance, and that's because the plugs aren't sparking as well as they used to when they were brand new. So this is just for reference what the old one that we just took out looked like. This is the brand new one right there. We're gonna go ahead now and we're gonna put the new spark plugs back into each cylinder. We're gonna make sure, like I said before, we start them by hand, we put them in by hand, and then we torque them down to the proper torque spec. Just for reference, because NGK doesn't put it on their boxes like the OEM ones do, they're all torqued down to 23 Newton meters. So as you can see right there, this is a OEM spark plug from BMW, and right there it does say 23 Newton meters. So gapping is important. OEM spark plugs from BMW do come pre-gapped, so I never have to worry about that. But we are going to check with this gapping tool right here to make sure that these plugs are gapped accordingly to OEM spec. Now, depending on what tune you're running, whatever your tuner might say, he might tell you to run a different kind of gap. But I do believe Kyler's just running an off-the-shelf, stage 2 tune. So we're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna leave it with the OEM spec of gap, and then we're gonna put it back in the car and make sure everything's good. So I'm gonna grab this little toolio over here once I get it out of the box, and we're gonna double check everything.
$23 Newton meters.
Correct. So I'm going to tighten these by hand first. Once they get snug and they don't turn anymore, then I'm going to grab the torque wrench and I'm going to tighten them down to 23 Newton meters. It's going to take a while though. My forearms will probably be dead, but here we are. So as you see right there,
Times 6.
Yeah, times 6.
All right, so now Ben's just gonna torque them down, 23 Newton meters. I'm just trying to pop the coils back in. You'll hear them kind of snap into place. Alright guys, so Ben's gonna go ahead and put all this stuff back together, same exact way you took it apart. Huge shout out to Ben for helping me out. Make sure you guys do me a favor and subscribe to his YouTube channel, Shrug Media, and then also follow him on IG. I'll plug his handle below. So usually I tackle these things by myself or with help of my brother, but huge shout out to Ben, already having like all the tools and everything we need to go ahead and get the job done here at BMW. Major convenience to get this done here. We have the lift and everything, and the oil. And by the way, you can use FCP Euro, but that's where I got the oil from. And they have a lifetime guarantee on pretty much all their products for BMW. So what you can do is repackage the oil and send it back to them, and they will refund you the money that you spent. So it's basically like free oil minus the shipping costs. Honestly, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna pay like, what, 70 bucks every time to do my oil change and just not have to deal with shipping it back. But I mean, it's up to you, it's personal preference, so you can do what you want. So yeah guys, that's gonna wrap up this video. Make sure you let me know if you have any questions down in the comments below. Let me know what you thought of this video, if you found it helpful. And of course, do me a favor, subscribe to Ben's YouTube channel, Shrug Media. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. Smash that like button, hit subscribe for future content. We're gonna keep the videos coming. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.